Oh, the PSP. This is a system that I've talked so much about on this channel as being the greatest handheld emulation device. You can put so many different game consoles on this. I mean, even just more obscure things that most people don't want to play. I'm talking like Wonder Swan, Neo Geo, stuff like that has emulators that are playable on the PSP, though most people will probably use it for, your Super Nintendo, Game Boy Advance, PS1, and to an extent the Nintendo 64, and it does most of those things very well because these emulators have received a lot of development. They've continued to be improved over the years, and yes, the PS Vita, which is obviously the successor to the PSP, has done all of these things a little bit better and is capable of running all of those PSP emulators, but in a faster speed, doing a little bit more, fast forwarding, other features like that on its hardware because it's just simply better hardware. At the price, the PSP can't be beaten in my opinion, but that's why I never thought that I'd be saying that the PSP is something that I want to emulate on Android. In the past, I've talked about emulating GBA on Android. I said, you get into too complicated games that are too twitchy, too fast, not having those physical buttons is a hassle. Yes, you can get a Bluetooth controller for your phone, connected that way, but if you're not bothered to do that, you might as well walk around and carry the actual physical hardware if you're going to carry a physical phone device like that. So my idea with emulation on Android was always to just use the touch screen, just be able to take my phone in my pocket and play a game, and I never really got a great experience doing that with the PSP emulation. It was great emulation, but just using that touch screen on my phone wasn't really working for me until I realized I just needed to change my perspective. Instead of using it landscape, if I just played the games vertically, kind of in like a Game Boy Advance SP type fashion where it's just stacked on top of each other, I got a much better gameplay experience. By doing this, I compressed the game screen, obviously, because it's being forced into the top portion of my portrait mode in my phone, so it's actually a little bit smaller, at least on my Pixel 2 XL, than it is on the original hardware, but it's not also being, stretched out and overly enlarged like it would be if I was playing on landscape. This also gives me a great amount of space that's just kind of black underneath the screen where I have the majority of my phone screen to work with to actually control, the thumb pad, the buttons, and whatnot. To really take into consideration the PSP's game library, it's expansive and it contains a lot of games that got re-released for the system, definitive editions, at the time of Final Fantasy titles, Persona titles, things that there may be older Japanese RPGs that came out on, say, the PlayStation 1 or even further back, and they got re-released in these sort of enhanced versions on the PSP. That's all available to you, and those are the types of games that play very well on an emulator where they're not so touchy. Madden 08's a little bit of a reactionary thing. It's not no fighting game, but it's got to be a little bit more twitchy, and without the physical buttons, that is a little bit difficult. But I am able to work with, larger gamepad buttons when I have this screen set up in this portrait mode. You don't need a really high-end phone to do this. In fact, just your average mid-range phone is definitely going to get you, like a 2x resolution on many of these PSP games. But I think that almost any Android phone out there today is going to be able to play these games at least at their original resolution, which is impressive because in the past, I think 5-10 years ago, really all we could do was at most, emulate the Game Boy, even 5 years ago on a low-end Android device, and now we're able to get PSP emulation on these things in a way that runs very well. Can you do PS2 emulation on a low-end Android device? Absolutely not. But the tech and the emulation are kind of hopefully going to meet in the middle and make that be possible eventually one day. But for right now, many of those PS2 titles that got ports on the PSP are going to be available to you through a PSP emulation on your mobile phone. I mean, there's just a ton of these games, be it Tony Hawk Underground, be it Battlefront 2, that I enjoyed playing as a kid on the PS2 that got ports to the PSP and thus are playable on lower end mobile devices because of that. So if you're looking for a mobile game to play on Android, I probably wouldn't even look at the App Store. Just skip straight past that, download an emulator, and check out the different games in the PSP library. If you're someone that didn't own a PSP ever, I think you'll quickly discover that there are a ton of great titles in this library. And if you're someone that has one, you don't want to lug it around all the time like I do, or you just want to have something you can play a little bit more sporadically, particularly with save states, which are very helpful for, just kind of quick play in, turn it off because you're able to do a save state and just jump straight back into the game. You'll realize the load times are much faster on an emulator than they were on the original hardware. Overall, it's going to give you a better, more portable experience. Is the gamepad decent, having to play it on the screen? No, it's not ideal, but you can definitely work with it and get an enjoyable experience out of it. And for that reason, I think PSP emulation is going to be my most used mobile game of 2022, even though it's, not a traditional mobile game. Thank you guys for watching. I'm Bailey, and I will see you in the next video.